I never expected to be locked out, but a single dad's kindness saved me from my darkest fears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I stood there, trembling under the weight of my world, staring at the door that had betrayed me. My heart raced like a trapped animal. I was locked out. Out of my safe haven, out of my reality. It felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled away. My breath hitched. Panic clawed at my throat. The shadows of dusk crept over the street, wrapping everything in an eerie embrace. I could hear the distant laughter of children playing, a haunting sound that felt like a cruel echo of my loneliness. The city buzzed along without me, an unforgiving tide. I was an outsider in my own skin, adrift in a sea of despair. Just that morning, I had felt hopeful. I had plans for the week, dreams sketched on the back of my eyelids. But now? Nothing but an empty gaping hole where my confidence used to be. The sounds of my Lithia lover's laugh, my daughter's chatter flickered like an old film reel in my mind. They echoed in the silence, drowning me in memories. My fingers trembled as I fumbled for the door handle, but the reality was stark. I was alone. No one was there. The orange glow of the street lamp seemed to mock me. And just when I thought despair would swallow me whole, a figure emerged from the shadows. He walked with purpose, a single father cradling a small boy in his arms. The kid was wide-eyed, clutching a teddy bear with a missing eye. I couldn't shake the feeling that this family was somehow a part of the strange riddle I was now living. "Hey!" The dad called out, breaking the solitude. His voice cut through the tension like a knife. I looked up, startled. "Need a hand?" Nods and whispers danced in the air around us. My heart skipped a beat. Who was this stranger? His kindness felt like a warm blanket tossed over my shivering soul. I didn't know how to respond. The weight of my thoughts made my head spin. Would he understand? What would it mean for me? Even in my desperation, I couldn't ignore the pull of curiosity. I felt drawn to his gentle nature. His boy glanced at me, a spark of innocent wonder in his eyes. Who knew what secrets these strangers carried? What stories lived within their smiles? As if sensing my hesitation, the dad stepped closer, the warmth of his presence igniting something inside me. "It's okay. We all have tough days," he said softly. I could see the flicker of empathy in his eyes, a shared understanding that zapped through the air between us. In that moment, the darkness began to lift. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, a low, ominous rumble echoed from the alleyway behind him. I turned, heart racing. The shadows seemed to shift, crawling toward us like living beings. I grasped the door handle behind me, ready to flee, uncertainty settling heavily in my stomach. What if he was a part of something more sinister? Could I trust him? My mind raced with possibilities. I was about to step into the unknown, willing to risk it all, but in that very instant, a scream shattered the night. My heart pounded. I had to know the truth. Was this random act of kindness just the beginning or an invitation into even darker fears? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scream pierced through the evening like glass shattering on the floor, sending chills racing down my spine. It was raw, distressful, and as unpredictable as the shadows lurking just beyond my line of sight. My heart thundered in my chest, gripped by both fear and an inexplicable need to assist. "Stay close," the father urged, instinctively tightening his hold on his son as he stepped cautiously toward the alley from which the sound had originated. The boy, clutching his teddy bear tighter, looked up at his father with wide, innocent eyes, a mixture of trepidation and curiosity coloring his small face. I hesitated, torn between the safety of distance and the empathetic pull leading me forward. My gaze shifted between them, the single father embodying courage and the child radiating innocence. Something about this moment felt suspended in time, like an unturned page in a story yet to unfold, but the thirst for adventure, for resolution, won out. I stepped forward, heart racing, uncertain of what lay ahead. What happened? My voice trembled, but I could feel a small spark of bravery igniting within me. "I don't know," the father replied, eyes narrowed and scanning the shadows. "It sounded like it came from over there." He gestured with his chin toward the darkened alley, and without further hesitation, we moved as one, two strangers drawn together by the need to confront the unknown. As we approached, another sound echoed, softer this to me, a whimper, laced with helplessness. I knew all too well that a single cry in the darkness could unravel even the smallest of hearts. Side by side, we edged closer, the alley welcoming us with its shadowed invitation. Each step felt like a plunge into deep water. What would we find? My mind raced with spirals of dread. But in that moment of uncertainty, the father's hand brushed against mine for support, a fleeting but electrifying connection that sent warmth flooding through me. His kind presence anchored me, whispering that perhaps I wasn't as alone as I initially thought. The alley opened up like a secret world, illuminated by the faint flicker of a single bulb dangling overhead. The corners harbored remnants of forgotten lives, discarded bottles, worn shoes, and the whispers of lost dreams. And then, at the far end, we froze. A figure lay crumpled, a young woman, shivering and broken. My pulse quickened as I pushed forward. "Are you okay?" I called out, voice shaking with urgency. She looked up, fear flashing in her eyes as she instinctively recoiled. "Don't come any closer," she croaked, her voice hoarse and filled with desperation. But beneath the fear, I glimpsed a glimmer of vulnerability, an unsettling reflection of my own heart scars. The father stepped forward, unafraid. "We're not here to hurt you. We want to help," he said, a soothing quality threading his words. Her gaze flitted between us, searching for the truth in our eyes. I just need to get away," she whimpered, tears forming in the corners of her weary eyes. "They won't stop. They just won't stop," her voice broke, spiraling into a painful sob. The boy clung to his father, sensing the tension enveloping us like a shroud. I felt my heart lurch, torn between the desire to comfort the woman and the instinct to retreat, to protect myself from what was becoming a whirlwind of chaos. "Please, let us help you. We'll figure it out together," I found myself saying, an emotion I had buried deep within rising to the surface, a flicker of hope in the face of oblivion. Slowly, almost cautiously, the woman pushed herself up to a sitting position. "You don't understand," she murmured, scanning our faces as if trying to find some hint of salvation. "There's something they've taken from me. Something I need to get back." An unsettling tremor filled the air around us, the darkness closing in with questions unanswered. My thoughts raced back to my own broken reality, the door that had betrayed me. Could this woman's desperation be connected to my own misfortune? Just as I opened my mouth to ask, the sound of footsteps echoed behind us, mocking the precarious sanctuary we had just entered. The father's grip tightened around his son, and I felt my own resolve quaver. Would this act of pure, unfiltered kindness draw more despair upon us? Before I could voice my fears, the woman gazed up with an intensity that caught me off guard. "You have to trust me. I know how to get it back. But you have to believe I'm worth saving." I felt the solid earth beneath me shift, the weight of her plea pressing down like an anchor. Time hung suspended in the air, charged with the raw intensity of our shared emotions, and as the footsteps grew closer, I faced my own reflection in her eyes, the relentless ache of isolation, the instinct to protect, and the faintest flicker of hope. In that moment, I realized that perhaps salvation wasn't just about finding or retrieving something I had lost. Maybe it lay in the connections we make when everything else falls apart if we choose to reach out. But was I ready to take that leap? Or had I just stumbled deeper into a darkness I would never escape? The footsteps drew nearer, and a sense of urgency pulsed through me. Each beat of my heart synchronized with the uneven rhythm of the approaching figures. I turned instinctively to look behind us, anxiety gnawing at my insides. "Please," the woman whispered, her eyes pleading. "You have to make a choice." Her words hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the shadows creeping up behind us. The father, his brow furrowed, caught my gaze as uncertainty clouded his expression. He too felt the weight of the decision pressing down on us. A fork in the road. We'd never anticipated that we were no longer just strangers brought together by fate, we were allies in a precarious battle against unpredictability. For a fleeting second, I felt fortified by the connection we were forming, bolstered by the common goal of understanding and healing, but then the sound of laughter echoed through the alley, sharp and mocking, pulling us back to a grim reality. The harshness of it grated against my nerves, amplifying the flutter of fear taking root in my chest. "Let's get out of here," the father urged, holding his son protectively in his arms, the boy now peering over his shoulder where I stood. Something in his innocent gaze made me ache. He shouldn't have to witness the darkness that lurked just beyond our fragile circle of light. But the woman remained rooted on the ground, visibly torn. "I can't just leave," her voice cracked, as if the weight of her past was too much for her to shoulder alone. "You don't understand. If I go back to them, they'll take everything." "Who?" I asked, stepping closer, drawn in by her pain despite the fear spilling from every corner of my mind. "They're after something that belongs to me, a part of me," she said, frustration and fear intertwining in her voice. "Without it, I'm nothing. I can't go back to being invisible, to being forgotten." A pulse of understanding surged through me. I too had felt invisible moments in my life. But what did it mean to lose part of yourself? I wanted to reach out, to pull her from the depths in which she'd become ensnared. Before I could formulate a response, burly shadows filled the alley, brandishing torches that flickered ominously in the dim light. They halted several paces away, their presence suffocating. "Look what we have here," one of them sneered, a cruel grin stretching across his face. "A little party in a dark alley. How delightful." The air around us crackled with tension as we steeled ourselves against the impending storm. The father shielded his son with his body, shoulders squared against the foes creeping forward. "Let her go," he shouted, voice steady despite the rage that jolted through him. For a moment, silence draped over us, as if each side was gauging the heat of the moment their menace met by our fledgling resolve. "And why would we do that? She's a liability," the leader spat, taking a step closer, his eyes glimmering with malicious intent. The woman's breath came fast, desperation rising like suffocating smoke. "I can offer you something," she gasped, a sudden surge of strength igniting within her. "You don't have to do this," but they laughed, cruel and mocking. There was a power play unfolding, and we were undeniably trapped within its confines. Suddenly the cracks in our bond began to widen. The father, the boy, and I, all sharing the raw, visceral yearning for safety, yet standing on whims of chance. Without warning, chaos erupted. The woman sprang to her feet, darting toward the shadows. In that split-second decision, fear chased her, brushing against her heels with icy tendrils. "Follow me," she cried, darting into another dimly lit path. No. The father shouted, instinctively following her, pulling his son tightly against him and wheeling around toward me. "This way." He beckoned urgently, and in that moment, I felt the fabric of my own bravery unraveling. Every instinct told me to flee, to abandon this risk, yet the emotional pull of solidarity tethered me to the spot. Caught in the whirlwind of their turmoil, with every ounce of strength, I forced myself to move forward, to join them. There was still hope swirling in the air, a transient gift lingering at the edges of despair. It held promise, a reminder that connecting in the darkest moments could light a fire within us, even when it seemed extinguished. That we ran, propelled by fear and urgency, as the threats behind us grew louder, charging like wild beasts we could not tame. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, and even as terror clung to the shadows, there was a flicker of hope ignited by what lay ahead. But just as we rounded a corner, a loud crash echoed, and I stumbled, barely regaining my balance. It happened in an instant. A hand reached from the darkness, snatching my wrist. "Got you." The world fell silent for a heartbeat, darkness consuming every ounce of hope I clung to, when suddenly, my scream was swallowed by the chaos engulfing me. His was only the beginning. The hand that gripped my wrist was strong and unyielding, a vice that sent shockwaves of panic through me. My heart raced, thrumming wildly as I was yanked back into the shadows, away from my frenzied allies, my lifeline. I barely had time to register the widening eyes of the father and his son before they faded from my view, their figures swallowed by the darkness. As I struggled against the grip, a voice cut through the noisy, a growl of authority mixed with an undertone of mockery. "You thought you could escape so easily?" The leader's face loomed close, illuminated by the flickering torchlight, revealing a cruel smirk that made my stomach churn. "Let me go." I forced the words out through trembling lips, my voice trembling with fear. "Why would I do that?" he taunted, pulling me closer as panic coiled tighter around me. "You're here for a reason, just like the woman. The difference is, you don't even know what you're worth. My mind raced to comprehend his implication, but before I could weave through my thoughts, he laughed, a low, guttural sound that echoed off the damp alley walls. "Oh yes. The women in this town often think they're forgotten, lost to time. But it's the ones like you, the ones who've been touched by destiny, who hold the key to so much more." In a sweeping motion, he thrust me against the cold, gritty wall of the alley, pinning me momentarily in place. Shadows danced around us, increasing the weight of dread in the air. I fought the urge to sink to the ground, to let despair release me. Instead, I raised my chin defiantly. "What do you want with us?" I asked, forcing my calm. "What's so special about me?" A flicker of surprise crossed his face, but then his sneer returned, dark and hungry. "You'll find out soon enough. You may not see it now, but your story is intertwined with the woman. And she is what we want." The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet as a wave of understanding crashed over me. No, my heart sank as I remembered her words, the pieces of herself they sought. My instincts kicked in, I couldn't let them have her. "Please, let her go." He leaned closer, his breath rancid. "What if I told you that you could save her? But only if you listen, because I have an offer for you." Meanwhile, the father and son were still racing through the alleyways, desperation giving them speed, but darkness was closing in on them as they tried to navigate through a labyrinth with no clear exit. I could visualize their frantic tension, the unspoken bond forcing them forward. "You need to decide quickly," the leader taunted, dragging my attention back to him. "You can help us find her, and in return, you'll be set free. Or," he raised an eyebrow, a smirk dancing on his lips, "you can remain here, trapped like a fly in a web." A cold shiver ran down my spine. What had I become? The girl who had always been on the periphery of life was now at the very crux of a decision that could change everything. My world began to spin, and I fought against the fear clawing at my mind. I thought about the woman, about the father, and the boy whose innocence rested in the balance of our fates. Suddenly, a soft rustle broke through the silence, the sound of someone approaching. A beam of light burst into the alley from the street, illuminating the darkness that had engulfed me. Just as my captor shifted his attention, I felt the warmth of another presence beside me. "Don't hurt her." A voice, familiar yet foreign, rang out. A girl appeared, her face half lit, but determination shone in her eyes. She stepped boldly into the light and glanced at the leader defiantly. "They'll make a trade too. What do you want?" he asked, intrigued yet cautious. Her voice was steady, but I could see the hints of fear lurking behind her bravado. "Let her go, and I'll tell you everything I know about the woman you're after." For a brief moment, time stood still as all attention focused on her. A glimmer of hope flickered between us like a fragile thread of connection weaving through danger. The leader hesitated, brow furrowed in thought, stunned by the onset of unexpected defiance, but before he could respond, echoes of laughter again reverberated through the alley, a mocking reminder of the chaos surrounding us. "Too late," he scoffed, "this was never your game to win." The grip on my wrist tightened as a realization washed over me like ice water. I had to believe that there was a way out of this darkness, that I was not just a pawn in a cruel game. But with every term he uttered, the stakes tightened, choking off my resolve. As the world reeled around me and the impending threat loomed overhead, I glanced back at my ally. The girl still stood her ground intently, but her eyes were locked on mine, daring the impossible. Would we find strength in each other? Would the threads of fate we had woven intertwine in our struggle, or would we remain confined to our own stories, forever locked away from the sense of safety we sought? Just as the leader prepared to respond, a loud crash echoed at the other side of the alley, drawing the attention of everyone. My heart raced again, but it wasn't the sound of a fall, it was the rapid approach of footsteps. "No!" I whispered, dread clawing at my chest, as the realization struck something sinister was coming, and then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement. A figure darting from the shadows. Was it the woman? Hope surged for a brief moment before crashing back down, leaving nothing but uncertainty in its wake. That we were bound to face whatever came next, together or apart. And in that breathless moment, as chaos hushed around us, everything seemed to hinge on one question: who or what would emerge from the dark? The moment hung precariously in the air, teetering on the brink of both despair and hope. The figure I had glimpsed in the shadows drew closer, moving with a swiftness that seemed almost otherworldly. My heart pounded like a war drum as anticipation clashed against fear. What had been an evening of whispers and threats was about to erupt into something much more unpredictable. The girl beside me maintained her ground, a flicker of resolve igniting her fierce gaze. I could see the strength in her posture, each breath she took echoed with determination, and beneath the layers of fear that gripped me, I found myself feeling bolstered by her presence. This was the shared breath of a partnership forged in the fires of conflict. Then, as if the universe had answered my silent plea for an ally, the figure stepped into the light, a woman, tall and fierce, with wild hair framing her face like a halo. Relief and confusion washed over me in equal measure as I recognized her, the woman for whom we had been grappling, the key to unlocking everything we had lost. But something flickered in her eyes, fear and defiance intertwined. Before I could shout her name or reach out, she evoked a hurried hiss: "Run!" Panic choked me. "What?" I whispered back, unable to comprehend the urgency in her warning. But I didn't have time to process it. The leader was moving, his demeanor shifting from intrigued to hostile. "Do you think you can just come in here and dictate the terms?" He spat, lunging toward her with an outstretched hand. In that split second, chaos unfurled. The girl beside me lunged forward instinctively, and I followed suit, propelled by the raw instinct to protect or shield her from the anger that surged like a storm. My instinct to safeguard was fierce and undeniable, even in the face of incomprehensible danger. "Let her go!" I shouted, my voice drowning in the thrumming tension of the moment. The air crackled around us, uncertainty twisting our fates while we stood at the edge of a precipice. But just as hope flickered anew, a loud crash surged from behind us, a cacophony that swallowed the darkness in the alley. Someone else was joining the fray, another wild card in an already suffocating game. The leader turned sharply, a sneer of contempt marred by irritation crossing his features. The footfalls heralding more trouble neared, heavy yet chaotic, each step echoing like a clarion call echoing through the veil. Everything felt suspended, a taut string waiting to snap. I could see the fear rippling through the other girl's eyes as she repositioned herself closer to me, our shared fear woven together, igniting a bond of urgency. Then, an unexpected figure burst into the dim light, a man, rugged and out of breath, but his face burned bright as he grinned fiercely. "Get behind me!" he shouted, pulling us closer. My heart stopped, recognition flooding my vision. It was the father I had witnessed fleeing moments before. "Stay with us. We'll figure this out," he called to the girl, his voice imbued with an urgency that bit through the noise. The boy's father exchanged a quick look with the woman, a brief moment of connection laden with unspoken understanding and deep-seated hope. The leader looked enraged, mouthing silent curses, brow furrowed in disbelief. "You're just making this harder for yourself," he spat, glaring at the man who had abruptly disrupted his reign of terror. But even as he seemed to tip the balance once more into chaos, I felt a tidal wave of hope flooding back. Could it be? Could this vanished moment bring us a way out of our shackles? I couldn't allow myself to consider it fully, not yet, but the flicker of possibility ignited the fire of resistance, and just as I opened my mouth to devise a plan, a piercing, horrifying scream cut through the air. It echoed from deeper within the alley, a haunting call that resonated with both the sweet and bitter tones of desperation. My heart sank as I processed the chilling sound. The realization collided like thunder: how many more innocent lives could be entangled in this chaos? The leader stilled for a moment. Surprise flitting across his cold gaze as panic laced through our collective breaths. "What was that?" whispered the girl at my side. Both of us were teetering on the edge of fear and instinct. No one could deny it now, our fates were inextricably tied to the cacophony that beckoned from the depths of the alley. The father exchanged another glance with the woman, his resolve set like iron. "We have to go," he urged, gripping her shoulder reassuringly as if to activate her choice, deepening their connection while the shadows threatened to engulf all we knew. But it was too late. The leader turned, a wicked grin stretching across his face. "Oh, I wouldn't go running just yet. You still have a part to play in this little game." He laughed, a laugh pregnant with imminent danger. The woman's face blanched, pupils dilating as realization dawned. If we moved now, could we face whatever was about to descend upon us? And in that moment, where the shifting sands of choice weighed heavily upon us, I heard it again, the cry farther away yet unbearably close. The woman's eyes flickered in recognition, piecing together a truth that surged close to her heart. "What do you know?" I blurted, directing my question toward her, but my pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out even my own voice. The leader shifted, impatience coursing through him, as he leaned forward, eager to claim his victory. But within the light and shadow of that alley, the echoes of hope and desperation collided in unison. As we stood on the edge of our fates, the choices forged between the warmth of empathy and the cold steel of fear, an unspeakable truth lay waiting, poised to change everything we thought we understood. What I did not expect was how, when all seemed lost, the cry that haunted me would redefine bravery, unraveling everything as the question loomed like a storm above our heads: who was truly worth saving? The shouting began to die down behind me, as if muffled by the sheer weight of uncertainty that hung in the air. The echoes of the unknown wove their way through the shadows, threading around my trembling limbs and ensuring I remained frozen, suspended in an interminable moment. I felt the presence of the girl at my side, a steady warmth anchoring me to the present, but even that wasn't enough to dispel the fear that clawed at my insides. "What do you know?" The words had slipped from my lips, a frantic plea for clarity. My eyes were locked onto the woman with wild hair, desperately reading the shifting emotions on her face. In the split second of silence that followed, I could almost see her mind racing, calculating the weight of truths lingering at the precipice of revelation that she started, but the leader's mocking laughter drowned her out, each cruel note slicing through the tension like a knife. "Enough with your games. You can't shield everyone," he shouted, stepping forward with menacing confidence. "I don't think you grasp how easily I can take what's precious to you." His words stung, a vivid reminder of the stakes we were playing for. I took a shaky breath, fighting to find my voice amidst the heavy clouds of fear swarming around us. "We were not pawns," I said, my own courage surprising me. "You can't hold us here." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, followed closely by irritation, which only fueled my determination. But my eyes couldn't leave the woman. I needed her to understand that her silence mattered. The father took a step closer to the woman, his expression urging her to share whatever secret was hanging in the balance. "He can't have you," he reassured, gripping her shoulder again. "We can protect each other." But tears glistened in her eyes, confusion and weariness battling against the budding resolve. "It's not that simple," she started, her voice cracking under the weight of a lifetime buried in shadows. The atmosphere thickened, caught in the horrific glow of our looming confrontation. "You don't know what you're dealing with," she continued, her gaze darting away from me, from the father, as if seeking refuge in a painful memory. He takes people. It's what he does." This revelation landed heavy in the space between us, swirling with the sharp remnants of fear and loss. My mind raced, piecing together the snippets of my encounters, the faces of those who had vanished, families torn apart, all linked by this man's ruthless ambition. A fresh wave of desperation washed over me. Suddenly, I was no longer focusing solely on escape. I began to comprehend the extent of our shared vulnerability. "We won't let him have us," I declared, feeling the trembling resolve swell inside me, but the leader leaned forward, his grin widening, as wickedness dripped from his words. "Oh, my dear, what a charming sentiment. Do you really think you can resist when the darkness closes in?" A scream erupted from somewhere deeper in the alley, raw and filled with the agony of a life at stake. My heart raced, an urgent beat propelling me to action. "We can't wait, we have to help," I urged, pressing forward, fueled by impulse and a roaring sense of duty. It was then the father's expression shifted, conviction igniting his features. "You're right. We have no choice," he finally said, lifting his chin defiantly. "If there's someone out there, we can't abandon them. We stand together, no matter what it takes." The air crackled with a mix of fear and fierce hope as our fates intertwined further with every breath we took. As if sensing our resolve, the leader stepped back, eyes narrowing sharply. "What a dramatic turn of events," he sneered. "But bravery won't save you," and with that, he motioned to the shadows lurking behind him. The air turned electric with anticipation, as the weight of something old and raw hung at the corner of the alley, threatening to break free. I felt a rush of adrenaline. It was now or never. I grasped the girl's hand tightly, pulling her along beside me, while the father positioned himself protectively in front of us. We moved as one, a shared heartbeat propelling us forward amidst the swirling chaos, but just as we pushed past the leader, the thrumming of my heart faltered. From the depths of the darkness, a figure slumped forward, dragging itself painfully into our dim sight. A child, no older than 8, dirt-streaked and wide-eyed, trembling in fear. "That," I gasped, clutching the girl's hand tighter as I struggled to come to terms with the reality of our situation. All that we had fought against now personified before us. The very peril that haunted our intentions lay trembling beneath a shroud of despair. "Help me!" the child cried, reaching out with fragile fingers, eyes bright with an innocence that shattered my heart. My stomach twisted painfully, every instinct screamed to save him. But the leader's laughter rang out once more, echoing coldly in the thick air, and I realized that if we didn't take action swiftly, the chance to save this boy might slip away forever. Time paused, waiting on a razor's edge, while our mission hung precariously in the balance. Would we risk everything to save a life that felt impossibly fragile, when the horrors that sought to consume us still lurked just behind the shadows? "Together!" the father shouted, galvanizing our resolve. But just as we prepared to reach for the boy, a sharp crack pierced the air. A gunshot, echoing ominously down the alley, signaling that soon, the game would escalate far beyond our fears, and in that terrible moment, I realized the stakes had transformed dramatically. Everything was about to change. The echo of the gunshot reverberated in my chest, a bone-deep reminder that we had crossed an unforgiving threshold. Instinctively, I froze, heart pounding against my ribcage, the weight of its thrum drowning out logic. The child's desperate plea hung in the air, a fragile thread straining against the sharp edges of impending danger. "Get down!" the father shouted, a primal urge propelling him forward as he pushed me and the girl behind him, to shield us from whatever chaos was about to unfold. I felt the warmth of her body pressed against me, but the horror of that boy clawing at our feet merged with the piercing fear within me. Wasn't that what we were fighting against? To prevent such moments of hopelessness? Another shot rang out, this time closer, sending shards of panic through our collective consciousness. I watched as the child faltered back, his little body crumbling in slow motion like a wilted flower. My throat closed. "No!" I yelled, the words spilling from my lips like a shattered vow, an unyielding cry against this stark reality that threatened to tear us apart. The leader, emboldened in this moment of chaos, surged forward, his glowing eyes gleaming with sadistic delight. "You think saving the boy will change anything? He's just another pawn," he sneered, each word dripping with malice. "You can either save him or save yourselves." My mind raced, caught in a web of impossible choices. I caught a glimpse of the girl beside me, her wide eyes reflecting a growing storm of defiance. In that instant, I felt a flicker of hope burgeon within me. Perhaps we didn't have to choose at all. "Stay down," I urged the girl, bowing low and gripping her hand tighter. "Well, get him." I turned back towards the child, who was struggling to stand, eyes glistening with fear and despair. "You can do this. Just hold on." His gaze shifted between me and the approaching darkness, his small body trembling not just from fear but also from the sheer weight of uncertainty, a weight that seemed to extend to us all. As shots continued to ring out from the shadows, the father moved with purpose, his sturdy frame positioned as a bulwark against whatever force threatened to crash down upon us. "Listen to me. You have to move now." His voice was fierce, almost primal, a call to arms igniting the last flickers of bravery within our hearts. Suddenly, an unexpected commotion burst through the alley, figures appearing from the depths beyond the leading man, clad in dark clothing, their faces obscured. "Come on!" one shouted, mirroring the urgency echoing in my chest. "This way," the leader spun around, fury painting his features, but the arrival of strangers had already shifted the fractured dynamic. These figures were allies, perhaps, a hope begrudgingly clawing its way to the forefront, a testament that maybe we weren't as alone as we feared. "Grab him!" I yelled, urgency coursing through my veins as I pointed toward the child. My heart raced between the desire to shield him from the encroaching darkness and the need for action that consumed me, but before anyone could move, the leader struck, his hand clasping around the boy's thin arm, lifting him effortlessly into the air. "A futile attempt," he mocked. "They'll never get to you in time." My breath caught, horror coiling around my lungs. "Let him go!" I screamed, every part of me longing to rush forward, to claw the boy away from his grasp. The father stepped forward, fist clenched, the defiance radiating from him, a fierce beacon that wrapped around my heart. "You don't need to do this. We can end this without further bloodshed." The leader's eyes sparkled with sadistic glee as he turned, cradling the child against his chest, a twisted sense of ownership in his hold. "We can't. This is who I am. And I'm not letting him go." I saw the boy's face falter, terror scrolling across his features, and part of me instantly felt the collective fracture of every soul entwined in this gruesome game. He was a mere child, caught in a maelstrom of sins that were far from his own, but just then, as the darkness began to close in, a hand reached out from the shadows. Figures stepping forward with unexpected grace, holding something glimmering between them. "Let him go. We know what you really want." The air shifted, a palpable wave of tension, as I realized this wasn't another threat but perhaps an ally with insights into the leader's twisted game. "You're being watched. You cannot win this." The voice called, strong and steady, piercing through the chaos like a beacon of light. The leader hesitated, his grip faltering just for a moment, and in that fissure of uncertainty, I saw hope. But in the very next instant, I felt adrenaline course through me, propelling me forward without considering consequence. "Grab him!" I screamed, lunging forward, desperation fueling my limbs. If this was our moment to turn the tides, to seize whatever remnants of light remained, we had to act. The world faded away, and suddenly it was as if we were all moving in slow motion, my heart beating louder than the gunfire that surrounded us. But as I reached for the boy, the leader twisted away, pulling him close, and my fingers brushed the child's clothing just before darkness enveloped me, a blinding pain exploding through my chest as the shots rang out anew. The world spun, falling into a fractured dreamscape of terror and desperation. And against the tempest of uncertainty, I screamed hoarsely as the leader's triumphant laugh echoed in the depths of my mind. This was far from over, the fight raged on, and the truth we were floundering to grasp teetered just beyond our reach. In that blur of motion, I let go of everything I had clung onto, the fragile tendrils of hope entwined within a storm that continued to threaten our very existence. But as darkness pulled me under, a singular thought flashed amidst the chaos: the battle was just beginning, and I would do everything in my power to rewrite this malignant fate. The cold asphalt pressed against my back as the world around me slowly began to settle into muted hues, blurring the chaotic colors of humanity into ghostly shadows. For a moment, the haunting laughter of the leader faded, lost in the echoing silence that enveloped me like an old, familiar memory. That I could feel my breath come in ragged bursts, my chest tightening in protest. It was as if the universe had conspired to steal not only my breath but my will to fight. I clawed through the fog of pain and fear, desperately grasping for threads of clarity amid the disorienting swirl of darkness. "Get up!" A voice pierced through the haze, shaking me from the grip of despair. I blinked and found myself staring into the father's fierce eyes, his determination igniting a flicker of resilience deep within. We need you. I could barely process the urgency in his tone as I struggled to respond. But there was something in his unwavering gaze, a steadfast resolve laced with the raw emotion of a parent who was willing to fight tooth and nail to protect his child. The flicker of hope he embodied fanned the dying embers in my heart. Go. I urged, my voice hoarse, fighting against the urge to succumb to the despair that threatened to swallow me whole. Get him out of here. I'll know. His words were sharp, slicing through the veil of defeat that clung around me. You are part of this fight. We fight together. As my gaze followed his to the unfolding chaos, I saw the allies, the figures who had joined us, steadfast silhouettes defying the dark. They were locked in a desperate clash against the leader's cronies, a fierce battle for every inch of ground. My heart raced, not just from fear but from an all-consuming desire to help. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about reclaiming light in a world filled with shadows. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I pulled myself to my feet, swaying slightly but determined to stand alongside him. The sounds of struggle surged around us like a tempest, the air crackled with determination, courage spilling from my veins like lifeblood seeking to nourish a withering plant. We can't let him win. I spotted the boy, still trapped in the leader's grasp, his small frame trembling, fighting against the reality of his situation. The sight of him ignited a visceral rage within me, a primal need to protect the innocence that the leader sought to extinguish. Keep pushing. I urged to the father as we moved closer into the fray, our voices mingling with the cacophony of battle. We have to distract him. With the pulse of adrenaline pounding in my ears, I rushed forward, channeling every ounce of desperation into a final attempt to seize the boy from the grip of darkness. Look out! I screamed, hurling myself towards the leader, using every drop of energy I had to break free of the rage that had tried to tether me in fear. The father's voice echoed behind me, urging the others to follow suit, our small embers of courage igniting into a blaze of chaotic bravery. Distract him. I could see the leader's gaze narrow, caught off guard by my reckless charge, his menacing grip loosening as he pivoted towards me. In that split second of astonished disbelief, I lunged for the boy, reaching for that flickering light amid the darkness. Hands grasped my shoulders, heavy like chains, pulling me back just as his wicked laughter rang through the air. You think you can save him? The words reverberated within me like a haunting symphony of despair. You cannot protect the ones you love, not here, not now. That I felt the shadows press in closer, every cough, every scream reverberating into my core, a suffocating reminder of how I had failed to save him once before. The very thought tightened around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs as despair clawed at my throat. How could I stand against the darkness when it had already taken so much? But then, in that moment of despair, I felt a tremor ripple through the ground beneath my feet, an echo, perhaps, of the resilience pulsing in our hearts. A surge of warmth enveloped me from behind, and I glanced back to the father, his eyes fierce with a father's unwavering resolve. We won't be defeated, he declared, standing tall amidst the tide of encroaching chaos. The very conviction in his voice ignited a spark within me. My heart swelled with an unexpected warmth, coursing through me like light on a darkened path. Suddenly, I could hear the voices of the other allies rising in unison, growing louder as they created a protective barrier around us. We were not merely fighting for survival anymore, we were fighting for each other, for the boy, a child of innocence caught in a malignant world. I steadied my breath and took a step forward, refusing to let despair completely silence any hope. Just then, a piercing gunshot rang out, this one different from the others, echoing like an ominous bell tolling in the darkest hour. My heart sank as a sickening realization washed over me. Before I could process what was happening, I saw Ida's shadow moving rapidly in the moonlight, a figure collapsing to the ground just beyond the leader. Chaos erupted anew, and as figures surged past us, I locked eyes with the boy once more, terror and confusion painting his small face. The world fell silent as questions raced through my mind: who had fallen? As the dust settled, and through the haze of confusion, I caught sight of the unmistakable figure lying crumpled on the ground. It was the leader. His laughter silenced, his grip gone forever, leaving behind only echoes of potential choices now lost. But in that moment of uncertainty, I also noticed a figure standing at the edge of the darkness, watching all too familiar, eyes locked onto mine, filled with chilling recognition and a glint of something I had never anticipated to see. It was then that realization crashed over me like a freezing wave. Our battle had only just begun. The chaos swirled around us, the scent of smoke mixing with the metallic tang of fear, pressing in on me as I searched for stability in a world that threatened to crumble. Heart racing, I took a hesitant step toward the fallen leader, the figure at the edge of the shadows still rooted in my mind, a specter of memories both haunting and familiar. "It's over," I breathed, disbelieving my own words. Yet, the weight of the situation pressed down heavy on my heart, a double-edged sword of relief and foreboding. The hollow laugh of the leader had been silenced, but his reign of terror had left scars too deep to vanish at the snap of a finger. The father at my side remained resolute, his own thoughts flickering across his face as uncertainty loomed in our minds. Is it truly over? Or is this just the calm before the storm? His voice was low yet steady, tinged with a wisdom born from too many battles fought for too long. That I turned to him, needing the warmth of conviction in the depths of my own confusion. "We have the boy," I offered, my words barely escaping my throat. Yet, even as I spoke, doubt coiled tightly around my heart, whispering the same dismal refrain, "Your past failures will return like vultures to feast." The boy stood, wide-eyed and trembling, relief mingling with the lingering panic of his trauma. My instincts urged me to rush towards him, to hoist him up in a protective embrace, yet something kept me rooted to the spot. Were we safe? Was the darkness truly turning away, or only hiding for the perfect moment to strike again? Suddenly, the figure lurking at the borders of the fray stepped into the dim glow of flickering streetlights. It was a woman, a silhouette I'd never thought I'd see standing in opposition to me. She was tall, defined by physical strength yet etched by the pain of compromise. Behind her stood a small group of somber allies, their faces mirroring her steely resolve. "Stop." Her voice rang through the air, filled with that same chilling recognition that gripped my throat. "You think you can just erase everything the leader has done? He was only a puppet." She paused, her words laced with taut emotion, "and we are the strings." The weight of her proclamation sent ripples of dread crashing through the fragile sanctuary we'd carved out in the chaos. "You're a part of this?" I asked, incredulous, as fleeting memories of our past resurfaced like unwelcome phantoms, ghosts of a time when possibility had dripped like honey but ultimately hardened into betrayal. "Part of it, yes." Her gaze didn't waver, her voice stark against the backdrop of pandemonium, "but it's not too late." "It never is." The sympathy in her tone sliced through my confusion, forcing anger and understanding to collide within me. The choice to leave or to stay dangled from a thin thread. What if her words were merely a reflection of her own torment twisted into well-meaning deceit? Seeing my hesitation, she took a step closer, eyes locked onto mine with a glimmer of hope. "He is gone, yes, but you must understand this: it's time to take control. You have the boy, you have the chance to shape the future." The boy took a step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to go home." Each syllable hung heavy with unfulfilled dreams, mingling with the smoky air, and somewhere deep within me, a flicker of my own past desires ignited. Home. It had become a foreign concept, cloaked in shadows, steeped in grief and remorse. Yet that word rang true, stirring something deep inside me. Could I really be a part of forging a new path and reclaiming something worth fighting for? As the silence stretched, tension snaked between us before breaking as the father placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. I could sense his unease mirrored in my thoughts, both of us caught in an emotional whirlpool. Then came the abrupt sound of voices shouting, fear thrumming through the air as chaos reignited. The allies surged, compelled by the lingering threat of the fallen leader's demise. The power vacuum had summoned the ferocity of creatures hungry for dominance. "Get the boy!" the father shouted, adrenaline propelling his order through the wreckage. "We have to protect him." With renewed urgency, I turned, grasping the boy's small hand in mine, feeling our connection grow stronger against the encroaching turmoil. "Well, take him, but where?" I questioned, surveying the landscape, a battlefield scarred by betrayal, desperation, and horror that lingered like smoke on skin. "Follow me." The woman called, seemingly of a different world, a beacon tugging at the frayed ends of my will. "I can help you. We can help each other," but before I could decide whether to trust my instincts or her intentions, a shadow darted between us in fleeting darkness, drawing my gaze back to the figure on the ground, now bleeding into the asphalt while a growing tide of adversaries emerged. And with it came the horrifying revelation that rattled my very core. The leader had not fallen alone, and his puppeteers were merely regrouping to reclaim what they had lost. Time is fleeting. The woman implored, her urgency sending jolts of recognition through my cluttered mind. If we didn't move, another fight would consume us. But as I desperately turned toward a path leading out of the encroaching darkness, I realized it wasn't merely my own fears that rooted me in place. The boy's steady grip on my hand conveyed a deep-rooted trust and fragility. Could I lead him into a new chapter, or was I walking us straight into another abyss? Fear settled in the pit of my stomach, a bitter reminder of the darkness still looming, and yet, with every heartbeat, I longed to take that leap of faith. Just as I made my decision, the ground shook beneath our feet, a resounding confirmation that the echoes of the past would never truly fade away. And as I followed her into the unknown, leaving chaos behind, I realized with a chilling certainty that the greatest battle still lay ahead. The alley swallowed the echoes of chaos behind us as we sprinted down the dimly lit corridor, our hearts pounding like drums echoing in the silence that replaced the turmoil. The boy, whose fragile hand gripped mine with an urgency that radiated both dread and hope, stumbled slightly, but I steadied him, mirroring the fear that clawed at my insides. "Where do we go?" I gasped, desperation threading my voice as I glanced between the woman and the looming shadows behind us. She moved with purpose, her confidence unyielding despite the darkness trailing our every step. "Just a little further," she urged, her voice firm as she led us into the faint glow of streetlights that lay ahead, a sanctuary beckoning through the night. Though I followed, a nagging doubt clung to my thoughts. What if our escape was merely a better disguise for the darkness? The remnants of our last confrontation lingered like a shadow, a taunting reminder of a battle that felt unfinished, raw, and unresolved. As we emerged into the light, I paused, allowing the warmth to envelop my skin, albeit temporarily. The street was eerily quiet, the sound of sirens distant, a promise concealed behind the layers of panic that still lingered in the air. My thoughts churned. I could still feel the weight of the boy's fears radiating against my side, a warmth that ignited a spark of resolve within me. "Are we safe?" the boy whispered, his small voice trembling like the last leaves clinging to autumn's grasp. My heart clenched at the vulnerability that echoed in his words. "We're okay," I replied, forcing a semblance of assurance into my tone despite the doubt swirling within me. "You're safe with us now," but the woman's gaze darted beyond the horizon, scanning for something unseen. "We need to keep moving. They won't rest until they find us," she cautioned. Shadows of her past flickered through her eyes, hinting at a lifetime spent running from the darkness, a life intertwined with the man we had moments ago sought to escape. Suddenly, she turned to me, her expression shifting, and in that instant, the gravity of her words felt like an anchor. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Confusion rippled within me as I locked eyes with her, sensing the weight of her secrets pressing heavily against the air between us. "No, but we can get to know each other later. Right now, we need Toy. I'm part of their world," she interjected, her voice steady, yet tinged with desperation. "I was meant to lead you into it, to use you as a pawn just like they've done to me." The truth spilled forth, jagged and raw, laced with an honesty that struck me cold. "What?" I gasped, the pieces of our journey suddenly shifting in disarray. "But you helped us. You saved us." "I was never the hero," she confessed, her gaze lowering to the ground, once vibrant and fierce now shifting into something much darker. "I was just waiting for the right moment to reclaim what they stole from me." But now she hesitated, as the raw emotion sparked anew in her voice. "Now I realize that you don't have to pay for my past mistakes. I thought leading you into danger would finally free me, but instead, I've drawn you into it." Her confession hung heavy in the air, and I felt the boy tense beside me, sensing the reverberations of her truth. All at once, the darkness I had fervently hoped to escape began to seep in on all sides, taunting me with the desperation I had worked so painfully to surmount. "No." I cried instinctively, unwilling to succumb to the hopelessness that threatened to sway me. "We're not a result of your choices, we're here now, and we can make different choices together. We're not alone in this." My voice gathered strength, undulating with conviction, intertwining with the echoes of the boy's gentle whimpers as he shifted beside me, yet her eyes glimmered with remorse, entangled in layers of guilt and regret. But I will always be drawn back to my past. I know they will hunt me until the end, and now they will come for both of you. Clenching my fists, I looked at her with rising determination. No. We can do this. We've already fought so hard for our safety. We just need to stand together, no matter what you think you owe. Just then, distant footsteps echoed down the street, growing louder as the fear began to sharpen. My heart raced with renewed urgency, adrenaline coursing through my veins. We have to go now, I urged, seeking to pull the boy closer as he clung to me, shadows arcing toward us like specters eager to reclaim what they believed was theirs. That we need to confront them, the woman resolved, her change in demeanor suddenly fierce and bright, illuminating the fragments of doubt that had begun to shroud me. And you're right. What we face together. With newfound clarity, she gripped my shoulder and steadied me. Together, you and I not part of their world but forging our own. As the footsteps drew nearer, I felt the tremor of fear crackle through the boy at my side, his innocence mingling with the weight of our fears. I don't want to be alone anymore, he whispered, and in that moment, I realized that our power lay not in unsettling the darkness but in allowing our hearts to shine through it. Yes, I declared, my voice trembling with hope. You won't be. We're together. You'll always have us always. I squeezed his hand, pulling him closer as we formed a small but fortified unit against the encroaching shadows. The woman nodded resolutely, her gaze sharpening, now focused on the path ahead of us. Then let's face them. We will break free from these chains, and as we turned to confront the darkness emerging from the shadows, merging our fears, our hopes, and our shared resolve, something within me surged, forging a bond stronger than the chains of the past. We were not merely lost souls drifting through shadows, we were warriors demanding our own story, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Just then, as the silhouette of our pursuers began to materialize in the moonlight, I felt a rush of understanding surge through my heart, the space between us filled with potential. It dawned on me that this battle wasn't simply about survival. It was about rewriting lives and reclaiming lost stories, embracing the bonds of kinship we had fought to establish, with each pulse of determination radiating warmth back into the chilling winds of uncertainty. And as we stepped forward, side by side, I whispered the words that grounded me in that moment, their weight strong enough to light our way through the shadows. We are not alone. The final confrontation awaited us, but this time, we would walk through it together, woven into a tapestry of new beginnings where hope emerged luminous even from despair. Because, in the end, we had finally found ourselves not lost souls in a cruel game, but an army of resilience ready to reclaim our light. Hand in hand, we surged forward into the storm ahead, boldly rewriting the path our futures had yet to churn.